Welcome to Khetz Tutorials. And in this video, we'll be talking about modules and importing. Now, I've already created the file modules.py. You can call it anything else. I just thought of calling it this. Now, before we start, I just want to define a few things. The first being module. What is a module? And how do we actually use that? So a module is a document or it's a file, a collection of functions. An example of a function is print. We've been using print quite a lot. It's a function. It prints to the terminal over here, and we know what it does. So it has a specific use or function. As you can see, it says function over there and a bunch of other stuff if you hover over print. Now, what if I want to use the square root function? You'll see that it highlights this. It doesn't identify this. But in actual fact, this is a real function, or it's an actual function which is defined in Python. But I can't use it until I import this module. So I said that a module is a collection, or it's a document that has a collection of functions. And in the math module, so I type out this import, which means it'll pull all the functions that are in math, or it'll import math. So math is a module in Python, and I'll have a link in the description with some other Python modules. And if I say math.square root, it's now defined because this is a function which is inside the math module. So in summary, modules are files or documents which contain a bunch of functions which we can use. Before we can use these functions, we have to import using a statement like this. So we already started importing. We've already started working with stuff like this. And what you want to do is to identify the modules that you want to use before you use them. And once you've identified them, you have to correctly import these modules. So I've now imported the math module, and inside the math module, there are a bunch of functions. And to access the function that you'd want to use, you'd have this dot, then the name of the function. Inside the brackets, you'd write a number which you want to find the square root of. So that is just an example of importing and using a module. So this is the module. This is importing. This whole line here is importing, and this is how you'd use it. Right. So Python has a lot of built-in functions or modules, and by built-in, I'm basically saying it comes with Python. You can just say import this, import that, and you don't really have to worry about a lot. But some other modules you have to install first, and we'll get into some of those modules as we go through the series. But you can look up those other modules that you might need. So if you want to do game development using Pygame, for example, you have to import some modules, and then before you import those modules, you have to download or install them. So depending on your use, you basically either have to install or just import as it is. So now, since we've already started talking about the square root module, let's go right ahead and look at it. So another function you can use, or another thing that you can access, is pi. So pi is 3.4 something, 3.14 something something something, and we can print that out just to verify that it indeed is that. So math.py. If you run that, then it should give you the value of pi. So pi is contained inside the math module, and you can just look up what each module has, or what you can do with each of these modules as you use them or as you go along. And another cool thing about modules, let's just wait for this to output the result of math.py, which is just the value of pi. So now after that, another cool thing about importing is you can give the modules a separate name from the ones that they have, as long as the name of the module does not clash with anything else which is known to Python. So for example, I can say import math as m, and wherever I have m, that'll take the place of math. So if you don't want to write that in full, you can just say m, and you can just replace the math that you already have over there with m, and this is perfectly valid. So you can give another name to modules just by saying as, than the name that you want to use, as long as that name does not clash with anything that is defined in Python. So that is pi, that is the value of pi, just printed the value of pi. And I also talked about the square root function, and we can also move on to another module if you like, import statistics, which is another built-in module. And in statistics, we can find the mean of a bunch of values. So we can find the average. So let's say we have values, let's just call them values, and we have a list with values like 3, 4, 5, 7. You can have a lot of values in a list, but now instead of manually calculating the mean of these values, you can just print, then say statistics dot mean, then have the name of the list around there, and this one line should just give you the value that you're looking for, which is the average of 3, 4, 5, and 7. So instead of using your calculator or using any other method to find the mean, you can simply do this. So Python is quite useful. You can import modules that are going to make your life much easier. These are just a few examples that I thought of right now. And if you run that, that is indeed the mean of these values that are inside the list. And once again, you can give this another name. So import statistics as stats if you want. And you can just replace this over here, just say stats. So once you rename it, it does not identify this name anymore. So just look out for that. Another thing is you don't have to import the whole module. You can just take a specific function out of the module. And to do that, you're going to say from statistics import mean. And now, instead of writing stats.mean, you just write mean. It now knows that this mean refers to the mean that's inside statistics. So you can pull out a specific function when you want to use it, and not the whole module necessarily. And let's run this just to make sure it works. And if you run that, it does work. Okay, so that is how you import. That is just a brief introduction to importing, working with modules, accessing the modules, renaming those modules. And you can just have a look at the link that I have in the description to look at some other modules, and you can do some research to find out some other modules you might need for plotting graphs. I'll have that in a separate video, and some other things which you might need. So this is all that I had to talk about in this video. It was an introduction into importing, an introduction into renaming modules, and understanding what modules do. They basically cover up, or they're basically a collection of functions which you can access whenever you import. So if you found the video helpful, just give it a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed, please consider subscribing, and I'll see you in the next video.